Good evening, and thank you to those of you who have still remained for your patience. As you know, the theme that we've been asked to address this evening is the one of understanding, and in particular, interreligious understanding. And I would like to have the honor to share with you this evening my own personal journey that opened up to me the world of interreligious understanding. More than 40 years ago, I was a very young rabbi in Cape Town, South Africa, in what was then the largest Orthodox Jewish congregation in the world, at the very height of the iniquitous system known as apartheid. And anybody of any religious sensitivity, any moral sensibility, surely understood that this was an iniquitous system that had to be challenged. And as a rabbi in my congregation, it was important for me to be seen to do so, but it was important for me to have my community seen to be engaged in that struggle against apartheid. There were limited options available under what was in fact a police state, but one of the few ways that you could bring people together across the divide was actually through religion, at least to a point. So I went about hawking my wares around, meeting up with different religious leaders in the city, with the opening adage, you know, father, pastor, imam, sheikh. The things that bring us together are so much more important than the things that keep us apart. But I knew in the South African context, if I did not involve the Dutch Reformed Church, which was really the power base of the ruling party, the ruling power. In fact, it was known often as the Nationalist Party at prayer. If I did not involve the Dutch Reformed Church that represented the dominant power in the land, my efforts would be of limited impact. I heard of a dominee, as Dutch Reformed Church leaders often refer to, a dominee in downtown Cape Town, who was having dialogue with Catholics. Now, I imagine you won't be very surprised about that, but anybody who knows or who knew of the demonology of the Dutch Reformed Church knows that for the Dutch Reformed Church at that time in South Africa, there were two great dangers. One was called the swart gevaar, which was the black danger, and the other was called the Romense gevaar, the Catholic danger. I thought if this guy is having dialogue with Catholics, then maybe he'd be open to a dialogue with a Jew too. So in my youthful naivety, I made an appointment and I went downtown to meet with him, and I opened with the same gambit, you know, Germany, the things that keep us apart are far less significant than the things that bring us together. And to my surprise, but fortunately not to too much consternation, but to my surprise he said to me, and I have to do this with a heavy South African accent, as it was said to me, "To tell you the truth, Rabbi, I cannot agree with you because the most important thing in my life keeps us apart. That is my belief in Jesus as my personal Redeemer. And you, Rabbi, do not share that. And therefore, I have to tell you the truth. You are going to burn in hell. And it is my duty as a good Christian to save you." As I say, fortunately, I didn't lose my cool. I said something which I'm not sure how much I believed it then, but it came to be very, very important and formative in terms of my future life. I said to him, "Well, thank you, Dominie, for your honesty. I still think it's really important for you to come to these meetings so that I can understand you better and you can understand me better. But in fact, Dominie, now you've got to come because I'm giving you an opportunity to try to convert me." The interesting thing was, he did come along, and if I can mix my denominational metaphors, he became less pontificatory with every meeting. And he brought in other people from his own particular community, and it was a very salutary, important experience for me to be able to see that there is value to the encounter even when people have dogmatic and very often narrow-minded positions. That is the power of the engagement. But this process for me was extremely illuminating. I had got involved in interfaith relations out of a commitment to social justice. But as I encountered people, I discovered here were people, religious leaders, who were incredibly ignorant about me and my tradition, and had all kinds of prejudices about me. And I realized it was enormously significant to encounter them so that they could meet me, understand me, discover me as I believe myself to be, and could put aside those stereotypes and misunderstandings. But as I engaged with them, I realized that it wasn't only they who were ignorant. I was pretty ignorant too about them. And I had all kinds of misunderstandings and stereotypes about my interlocutors. And I realize as important as it is for me to be understood, in order to truly be understood, I need to understand. And beyond that, I realized as I discovered wonderful people who shared so many values that I treasured. The dignity of the human person, the sanctity of life, the value of the family, striving for justice, righteousness, and peace. If I really believe in these values, then surely I have to strive to work together with others that share those values from other traditions. If I don't do so, then surely I'm failing those values and that tradition that I say I treasure and that I represent. But there was something else that happened in this particular process. It was a kind of a theophany. It had never occurred to me before to even think about the meaning of other religions. I grew up, like many people within traditional homes, especially an Orthodox home, that was in actual fact a home that was open to other cultures and societies. But I thought of my religion as the way, and others in relative degrees of light or darkness. And as I encountered these wonderful people from different religious traditions, the obvious question confronted me. That if God has created us in all our diversity and relates to us in so many diverse ways, there must be diverse ways of relating to him. And that in fact, if we affirm, especially within the Judeo-Christian and Muslim traditions, that the human being is created with a special character that we refer to as the divine image or with a divine spark, even as the regent of God in the world. If God is to be found everywhere, but above all, that unique presence in the human person, then every human encounter is in fact an encounter with the divine. And how much more so when you encounter the other in the sense of the divine in her or his life. Interreligious engagement became for me a process of religious enrichment. It didn't diminish from my identity as who I am and what I believe. On the contrary, it deepened my understanding of who I am, but it was an encounter with the divine beyond my own tradition, beyond the capacity of any one tradition to be encapsulated. God is more than any one religion. The very idea that one tradition can encapsulate that totality should be for us ludicrous. And therefore, it was really important for me now, not just to be involved in interreligious relations out of a commitment to social justice, as important as that is, but to have the blessing of that encounter beyond my borders. I did, of course, try to pursue those goals, social goals, moral, ethical goals, as much as possible. I hope I contributed to the change in South Africa. We left before the wonderful blessed transformation took place. We then went to Ireland, where I was chief rabbi, and after we left, things improved there too. In fact, generally speaking, places improve after we leave. There is now an attempt to get me out of Jerusalem, where we live, in the hope that that might improve things in the Holy Land. As Professor Mattson has told us, however, there is something, a certain quality that is really critically important in this interreligious engagement that is really essential for true understanding. And that is the quality of humility. It's implicit in what I've said already. The very idea that we are exclusively true is itself a barrier to the capacity to be able to engage the other. There are truths, and each of us believes our respective truth. But for true interreligious dialogue, as a great Canadian rabbi put it, theological humility is essential. And think of this word that we've been asked to address, understanding. Only recently dawned on me the power of the word, understand. You can only truly comprehend the other if you are willing to put yourself a little lower than the other in order to be able to appreciate what the other stands for. To stand above the other, and therefore to assume superiority over the other, is the fundamental barrier to understanding itself. The sages of the Talmud and of the Midrash say that arrogance is ultimately idolatry. It's self-idolatry. And therefore humility is an essential ingredient in being able to enjoy that blessing of true interreligious understanding. Many of you might have even known, but certainly will have heard of, the great Lutheran bishop of Oslo, who previously had been the head of the divinity school in Harvard, Christer Stendahl. He had 3 famous guidelines for interreligious encounter. The first 2 are pretty obvious. Try to understand the other the way the other understands herself or himself. The second goes a little bit further than just understanding. Always view the other community by the best within it. Don't judge it by the worst within it. But his final guideline is a really beautiful concept. He says, leave room for holy envy. It's a beautiful concept. It's wonderful when we encounter people from other traditions. You say, you have that, we have that. Isn't that wonderful? We have these things in common. That's great. But it's no act of disloyalty to your own tradition to be able to see something wonderful in another tradition that is not part of yours. That is the capacity not just to understand, but to celebrate. And that is really the ultimate goal of true understanding, when we can celebrate one another. Our goal of interreligious understanding is to be able to see the holy in the other, to celebrate their particularity in a human unity that is blessed with the glorious spiritual diversity that we enjoy at this wonderful Parliament. Thank you.